We thank the Reverend Dr. Weiss for his prayers and for opening this beautiful church to us tonight. And I thank all of you for coming to this meeting. It underscores what a wonderful community we have, that folks will take their time to come to a civic meeting to give their input and thoughts on a very important subject in our city, body-worn cameras by our Columbus Division of Police. Our city is also blessed for having leaders like Mayor Ginther and City Council President Klein and Councilmember Mitchell Brown, who have seen the need and are willing to fund the significant cost in resources to implement body-worn cameras in our city. Our city is also blessed by having what I believe the best law enforcement agency in the country. Our Division of Police is outstanding for a number of reasons, a few of which I'd like to highlight for you. We are nationally accredited. Now, this is the highest achievement possible. It's a very arduous task to become nationally accredited by all your peers, and it is very rare for a major metropolitan city to obtain. Our folks, our officers, are incredibly well trained. Our officers, as their cadets, receive almost double the state mandated training in Ohio. We do things here that other folks, best practices, if you will, nationally, not only the number of hours, but the type of training. So for example, training in bias and implicit bias, training in what's called scenario-based training, training in de-escalation tactics. This type of training, if you've read President Obama's Commission on 21st Century Policing, is now recommended nationally. It's considered a best practice. Likewise, there is the Ohio Community Policing Collaborative, that group, which was formed by Governor Kasich, is also recommending these practices. I am proud to inform you that we have been doing this type of training for years. In fact, Chief Jacobs recently spoke to presidents, was asked to speak to President Obama's committee, and she shared our national best practices with respect to training. Our facilities and our equipment are top-notch, and we place a great emphasis on community engagement and outreach. I handed folks this on the right side of the room. Sergeant Weiner handed this to this side of the room. I'd like to go over this real quickly with you. I am always asked about community initiatives and how folks can get involved in law enforcement matters in our community. This is a brief overview of some of the many initiatives we have. So for example, the first one is ABCs of Policing. It's a class that teaches what police officers do, the type of training they receive, and the laws that they are required to act under. Bike patrols. We have one of the largest, if not the largest, bike patrol in the country. We are able to look at crime data and direct them to hotspots of issues that are occurring throughout our community. Policing, as everything else now, is becoming very analytical, very statistical, and helps us to be good managers, allocating your resources where they're most needed. Our block watch. We have one of the largest block watches in the country. There's always a celebration I look forward to each year, National Night Out, that most of our block watches will participate in. We can go on, and I know that I've asked the chief to highlight some of the things. For example, our school resource officers. We have police officers in our high schools. We are now reaching down to the middle schools to give training and guidance to pupils. And we have an amazing presence on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, YouTube. The chief and I talked about the common questions that we often get. And the chief has made a number of videos that you can watch on video. Questions such as, what do I do when an officer pulls me over? How should I act? How do I make a complaint against a police officer? How are officer-involved shootings investigated? How can I become a Columbus police officer? All of these things are on our social media and websites because, quite frankly, that's what the young folks look at today. Many wonderful attributes, but I also want to underscore that we do have crime in our city. In fact, we receive on our 911 emergency line about 750,000 calls a year for calls for service. Let me say it again. 750,000 calls a year in one of the largest metropolitan cities now in our nation. But let me put this violent crime in our city into perspective. And I would do that both subjectively, and what I mean by that is, let's look at violent crime in Columbus over a number of years, and then let's look objectively, comparing the violent crime in our community against similar-sized cities across our nation. So in subjectively examining our violent crime, we have an incredible inverse relationship. Our violent crime continues to fall year after year, and our population continues to rise. Let me underscore that again. You have an incredible inverse relationship. Violent crime has decreased year after year in our community, where our population continues to grow. Very few cities, especially in the Midwest, have such a wonderful inverse relationship. Now, what about objectively? How does Columbus compare with other cities similar size throughout our nation? Columbus fares very well. If you would look at the FBI statistics that bases violent crime on per hundreds of thousands, we do extremely well nationally. And in fact, we were recently recognized as one of only 5 cities, major cities, in the United States whose violent crime, especially homicides, did not increase since the events in Ferguson, Missouri. Now, it's important to recognize, however, that as outstanding as our police are, as our residents are, there is always the possibility of a tragic incident that results in divisions and discords in our community. And we have all seen throughout our country and here in Ohio what such divisions and discord looks like. Again, let me put this in perspective. 750,000 calls per year, 911 calls. We can quantify that. The computers can tell us that. What I can't quantify, and couldn't even haphazard a guess, what are the number of citizen contacts that our officers, 1,900, have with our citizens each and every day? So if you look at those total contacts, your 911 calls plus this other unmeasurable, it would be in the millions and millions and millions. But as I said before, there is always the possibility of one tragic incident that could cause divisions and discord in our community. Body cameras, that is videoing that event, both video and audio, will undoubtedly help to mitigate the chance of such divisions and discord in our city. Now, I don't want to come across as saying that body cameras are a panacea or a cure for all the possible police-community relations. Studies have shown they're not. But equipping our Columbus officers with body cameras will be a very significant law enforcement tool that will help to promote a more positive police and community relations. It will enhance public safety, both of the community and the safety of our officers. And studies have shown an increased accountability in communities where these cameras have been implemented and greater transparency in these communities. And lastly, and I believe significantly, body cameras will aid in the prosecution of criminal cases. At the same time, implementation of this very important new technology comes with very significant challenges. Challenges such as there's a need for a policy. And the policy, on one hand, you need to be very transparent. That's why you're doing the body cameras. On the other hand, there are very significant privacy issues associated with these cameras. There is needed infrastructure. There's technology infrastructure. For example, the mayor and council have just allocated about $2.5 million in our capital budget. There's a hearing just before this hearing on that capital budget. $2.5 million is going to purchase servers to store this video camera footage. Secondly, we have 9 police substations in our city that are not connected by fiber. We have learned from the mistakes of other jurisdictions. They have bought the cameras, tried to upload the video, and nothing uploaded. The pipe, or the fiber optics, if you will, wasn't big enough. So we are investing over $1 million to ensure that our substations will be connected so that this footage is able to be uploaded and utilized. So again, obstacles, infrastructure, personnel is another issue. We will be giving this footage to the criminal justice systems, the prosecutors, defense attorneys. There will be, I am sure, a substantial increase in the number of public records requests, and we have to comply in a reasonable amount of time with those requests. We need to address privacy concerns for both the public and the privacy concerns of our officers. We need to address collective bargaining issues. We need to consider the effect on other parts of the criminal justice system. And of course, we must fund a very significant cost in a new and rapidly emerging technology. So to tackle these issues, a diverse committee of community leaders was selected, the Columbus Body Camera Committee. The mission of the committee was to evaluate the most effective and efficient way to implement cameras for use by our Division of Police. The members selected have a very broad range of talents and expertise they have brought to the committee and our task. We have been working extremely hard for a number of months now. Let me quickly introduce the members who are here and some who are unable to make it tonight. We have Bo Chilton, CEO of Impact Community Action. Sergeant Kyle Earljack of the Fraternal Order of Police. Is Kyle here? Great. Gail Hill, a very successful businesswoman in our community. Margot Kaminsky, professor at Ohio State University of Law. What I love to say about Margot is she is a Harvard undergrad, Yale Law, and now a professor at my former law college, Moritz. Carla Rothen, executive director of Stonewall. Okay. Abdi Sophie, Community Relations Commission. Bob Stewart, Department Assistant Director of Public Safety. Commander Bobby Strasbaugh, Division of Police. And our gracious host, the Reverend Dr. Wise. A number of other experts from many disciplines have assisted, and some of those folks are here. We have Tracy Retchen, the Senior Policy Advisor for Mayor Ginther. We have Gil Patrick, Senior Attorney. We have Jeff Furby, the Chief Legal Advisor for the Division of Police. Laura Baker, the Chief City Prosecutor, is involved. And there's many other folks, especially from technology, when you start looking at things such as bandwidth and connectivity and server space, who have been aiding in this effort. So what's the committee done? We have reviewed extensive body camera materials. The materials include the 4 what I call national policies written by the Police Executive Research Forum, the American Civil Liberties Union, the Fraternal Order of Police, and the Labor Relations Information Systems. The materials that we reviewed also contain the policies adopted by jurisdictions from across our nation, various legislation enacted in each state. The privacy laws differ from state to state, and we've been taking a great look at those. Voluminous published articles on the pros, cons, concerns, and lessons learned about body cameras throughout our nation. And in fact, from Scotland and England, this technology was first implemented in Europe and is now, as many things, it's making its way to the States. Finally, and I think significantly, there were links to body camera videos that the committee members viewed that embodied a variety of law enforcement types of situations and showed advantages and disadvantages of the video. And these videos, I can tell you, were discussed, dissected at length. So those were materials. We had many experts testimony, for example, from the Ohio Attorney General's office, the Columbus City Attorney's office, the Department of Public Safety, Technology, the Ohio Newspaper Association, the law schools, and body-worn camera vendors came in and gave some presentations as to how the technology worked. So the committee is working very hard to craft what I hope will be the best body camera policy in the nation. And also the committee is working hard to make recommendations concerning state law changes in order to better protect privacy. Our work is not yet done, which is why we're here tonight. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to take testimony from you. What are your thoughts concerning body cameras? Do you have suggestions for the committee as to how to best craft a policy or specific suggestions on a certain issue as it relates to body cameras? Before we take your testimony, I have asked Chief Jacobs to give an overview, a brief presentation about our Division of Police and in our community with respect to law enforcement. Chief.
Thanks, Director. I'm going to start with the, thanks, Director. I'm just going to give another brief overview of some of the things that go on with the Division of Police so that you better understand. One of the things that we do with our community engagement is just trying to educate people about what the division is doing already so that you have a basis for the context in which we'll be operating with the body cameras. The first thing is that we have a mission statement, and that is that we are in service with the purpose to protect, with the passion to persevere, and with the utmost pride in our performance. And that is what we're trying to accomplish at all times with our work. Our vision statement, so where we want to be, includes being trustworthy. So that's part of what we come right out and say. We want to be viewed as trustworthy. And we believe that this is one of those vehicles to help us prove that. We want to be diverse and we want to be community-minded. Thus, one of the reasons why we're here tonight is to find out what's on your mind so that we can add that to our policies as needed. So the overview, the director talked a little bit about that. Not to look behind myself. We have a lot of people that work with us, approximately 1,900 sworn right now. That's one of the highest levels ever. Right before the big recession, we had around 1907, and we're right around that number right now. So we've gotten back up to the numbers in which we used to operate before the recession. Our budget is $305 million. That's a lot. We have 500 marked vehicles, 460 plain vehicles. As the director said, a very large bike unit, so a lot of officers are out there working on bicycles. In addition to that, you've probably heard a lot about crisis intervention. You know, this is considered a best practice. So what do we do with regard to that? Well, we send officers that volunteer to a 40-hour training week where mental health specialists from other agencies, the prosecutors, lawyers, doctors, judges, all of that assist us in training our officers to be a first responder to a mental health crisis. And we have 228 of those of our officers trained in that particular work. In addition to that, as you heard the director say, we have a lot of facilities. Our officers report to substations. So one unit will go to one building and report for their shift and then go out on patrol. And we have 25 facilities that we have to maintain. The next slide is just an overview of what the city looks like. Obviously, there's some parts in there like Bexley, Upper Arlington that are not in the green and yellows and reds, but this is a calls for service chart, and you can see some of the ways that we get around, and that's our entire city that we patrol, about 227 square miles. These numbers are large, as the director said. Grand total of all the calls that we received was 1.3 million in 2015. That's a monthly average of 111,000 calls for service, with 1,900 officers spread on 5 different shifts, and not all of them being assigned to patrol. You can see that they're quite busy. An hourly average is 152. You can see a little bit about the calls for service over the years. But these are the last 3 years and the numbers of calls for service by precinct, if you know what precinct you live on. And then we've broken down our precincts into, we have zones and then precincts. We prioritize all of our calls for service. So priority 1 means there's a life-threatening situation going on right now. Get there as quick as you can. And as you can see, in 2015, we had almost 7,000 life-threatening calls for service. That's a lot in one single day. So you will see officers trying to get there as soon as possible. That's when you would typically see one of our cars using their lights and sirens. In addition to that, priority 2s, that's the potential for injury. So a bad accident on the freeway where the cars are stuck in the middle of moving traffic and all that, very dangerous conditions. We're going to try to get there very quickly as well. And as you can see, there's many, many, many of those. 184,000 of those potentially dangerous situations. And then almost 200,000 priority threes. These are your fights, these are your disturbances that need our attention, but we don't have to go lights and sirens to get there. Priority fours, those are our reports. Your burglary report, your theft from auto report, something that we're going to assign to the cruiser district officer whenever we get an opportunity so that they're aware of what's going on their particular district. Priority five is we're going to wait on that because you've probably asked for a specific officer to talk to you about that particular call. So as you can see, there's many calls that are handled every single day. So give you an idea of among those calls, what's violent? What's violent? A person with a gun. As you can see, these numbers are high. So 5,000 times a year, officers are being sent to a run where somebody has told us a gun is involved. So how many is that a day? Every single day, officers are responding to somebody with a gun. And you know you don't hear about police-involved shootings every day. So that means that most of these calls are being handled without any type of force, especially deadly force, on a regular basis. Person with a knife, 2,200 times last year. Those are deadly situations as well. So think of these numbers, 7,000 of those. 6,000 calls where somebody reported that actually somebody fired a weapon in the area. We get a lot of those on New Year's Eve, obviously. If you didn't know already, New Year's Eve, the first hour from midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning is the busiest hour of our year. So the very first hour of every single year is our busiest hour of every year. And that's because a lot of people think that it's fun to go outside and shoot a gun into the air at midnight. We don't think it's fun. We think it's extremely life-threatening, and we give it a lot of treatment, but that's just a reminder for your own personal safety. So 739 shootings last year, meaning that somebody's reported not only did the gun go off, but it hurt someone. And we respond, we're the first responders on that. When we have that type of information, the fire department with their medics are not going to go in until after we've made sure that it's safe for them to go in. And then in addition to that, 1,200 cuttings or stabbings. So there's a lot of people that are calling us on a regular basis about some violent act, some dangerous act, where a weapon might be involved. And as you can see later on, that does not result in force very often at all. So guns recovered. This is how many guns were recovered in 2015, 2,200 guns. About 13% of those are reported stolen. But that means in a situation that an officer was out on the street, somebody might have called, we might have gotten into a situation that, person with a gun call, and we confiscated. So those guns got turned into our property room. This is that chart that the director was talking about with the inverse. So we've got the red dots are violent crime since 2005, and you can see it's trending down, which is a very good thing for our community. The blue line is our population, and I believe that we're well over the 810,000 that this chart shows. So that number on the blue line would be even higher than it is on this particular chart. It's a great chart to give you a sense for that. This is property crimes, and even with the amount of people that are actually hooked on heroin and doing a lot of property crimes, ours is not trending up like some other cities. This is the calls for service that talks about people with a crisis going on. And as you can see, those numbers are quite large. So use of force. So all those officers, those 1,900 officers, this is the force that's been reported for the last few years. So OC is our spray, our mace, and you can see that we've used that about 138 times last year. Taser, a great, less lethal weapon that we use and have used for about 12 years now. It saves lives on a regular basis. We chart those out, and we track when we've used a taser, when we could have used lethal force because somebody had a knife or somebody had, some type of other instrument that was a danger to the officers. And sometimes it's used when somebody is threatening suicide with some type of an implement, and we're able to use a taser to subdue them. Strikes with hands or feet was less than 80 times last year. And then strikes with a baton or object was 5 times. 5 times. When I was hired 37 years ago, that was the standard way of subduing somebody, with a baton or a flashlight. And the cuts that resulted from those, the injuries that resulted from those was quite high. So 5 times in one entire year is quite significant, and means that our officers are using restraint with their use of force. A lot of people don't understand what the standard is for use of force, and that is ruled by case law from the United States Supreme Court. Graham v. Connor, Tennessee versus Garner are both cases that talk about how officers are allowed to use force, and that's based on the things that have happened that get sent through the appeals process and make it all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And then the United States Supreme Court rules on that and gives some guidance to officers. That court case was decided in 1987. And so since then, we've been operating under that particular case law with regard to how our use of force will be judged. So deadly force in Columbus. For the years 2008 through 2013, we averaged around 18.6 officer-involved shootings a year, and that's at a suspect. And that was, the low was 14, the high was 22. In 2014, we had just 9 shootings that were directed at a suspect. In 2015, it was 16 directed at a suspect. So our goal all the time is how can we keep that number low? And that's one of the things that we have talked about, and one of the things that I actually did a lot of sessions with my personnel on pride, our core values, how can it save more lives? And so we had 3-hour sessions with our personnel and talked about how good tactics, good training, how the way that we handle that particular incident does matter, and whether or not we can have a successful outcome without using deadly force. We've also put policies in there that if we know that it's a mental health crisis, we're required to send a CIT officer. So there's a lot of things that we're doing, in addition to trying to make sure that our officers are able to manage their health and well-being in a good manner so that they are fit and ready to go in all ways to do that. Talked about community policing. Well, one of the ways to measure community policing is to look at the number of complaints that come in about the police. And again, you can see for the last 10 years, the number of complaints have been steadily declining. And we have a 24-hour ability to make a complaint against police officers. We have what we consider to be one of the best internal affairs bureaus in the country, and the process. So the way that a citizen complaint is made and investigated, we consider to be a best practice. And as you can see, those numbers are trending down. So what's the law enforcement role in community policing? It's about leadership, and all of our personnel are leaders. It's about management, doing things in the right way. It's about building consensus. The number of community engagement and outreach opportunities that we do is quite large. We had a recent event at Ohio State University. It was a dialogue that we did with students. 25 of our officers sat down with 150 students from Ohio State University and just got to know each other and had a real dialogue. It wasn't a Q&A, it was get to know each other so that we can better understand where people are coming from. It was a great event. We have a mission statement. Our strategic planning is all the time looking at how we can be better. We try to deploy our staff appropriately. Our training is top-notch, as the director said. Sorry. And we have collaborative problem solving on a regular basis, especially with our community liaison officers. So is there a role for you in the community policing scheme? Absolutely. It's not policing and community without community. Engage. We have lots of opportunities for that. You being here shows that you are invested. Communicating with your neighbors, volunteerism, participation, National Night Out, and we thank you. And just on a personal note, we suffered a tremendous loss just a couple of weeks ago, and it was very, very sad, tragic for us, but the community support was truly amazing. I appreciate everybody reaching out as they did through so many different ways. It was heartfelt by so many of our officers. I cannot thank you enough for the support that you gave us. So the outreach, we have a lot of that. We have community liaison officers. When I first became chief, one of the first things I heard from the community was, do not get rid of my CLO. We heard that you might get rid of them. No, that's never going to happen. CLOs are here for good while I'm chief. So we have a lot of block watch organizations, as the director said. They work on the problem solving. They will take care of code enforcement. If you know about the hotels operating up on 161 in the Northland area that were really just dens for prostitution and drugs, our CLOs were largely responsible for working with the city attorney's office and code enforcement to get those hotels shut down. There's a lot of information, as the director pointed out, in that form. There's contact information as well. So please, if you are interested in one of our outreach programs, do that. Anytime you want to go ride with an officer, sit behind the windshield, side by side with a police officer out doing their job, it's free, it's available 24/7, any day of the week, any amount of hours you want to do. You can find out what it feels like from the inside of that cruiser to be with a police officer and how they handle their calls for service, and just get to know one. The Citizen Police Academy, we've got one going on right now. We'll do at least one more yet this year. It's a 9-week opportunity, 3 hours, 1 night a week for 9 weeks, and you learn a lot about the Division of Police. It's been around since 1993, and we've graduated a lot of citizens through that police academy, and they learn a lot, and also they find out what cops are really out there trying to do. Our social media, as the director said, is quite significant. We have exponentially increased the number of people that we're in contact with every single day through Facebook, Twitter. Last year, the deputy chiefs, while I was out of town, did a tweet-along. And it was so wildly successful. But on the same day that they happened to do our first tweet-along, we found out that a group had done a study of tweets in the country about law enforcement agencies. And on that same day we were doing that, we found out that we were ranked #1 in the country for the most favorable tweets about law enforcement agency in the country. And that means that you, all the people that are tweeting, were doing it in a favorable way. So we truly appreciate that. And these are the ways that you can stay in touch with us through our social media venues. We have a website as well, columbuspolice.org, that has tons of information on there. We're trying to get that improved so it's a little bit more user-friendly, but there are many different ways that you can connect with us. You've got information with contact information. So that's a little bit, or a lot, however you look at it, about the Columbus Division of Police, and I truly appreciate you being here and telling us what you think.
The best law enforcement agency in the country is led by the best chief. She is modest, so let me brag for a moment. The chief was just awarded the YWCA, the prestigious Woman of Achievement Award, several weeks ago. She is a member of the National Major Cities Police Chiefs Association, a board member of the Center for Family Safety and Healing, and a member of the Ohio Police Officers Training Commission. Thank you. Now it's time for the most important speaker of the night, you. As I said before, our committee is is and has been diligently working, and we're reviewing such body camera issues as who in the division should wear them, what should be recorded, should an officer inform the subject of the recording that they're being recorded, what discretion should an officer be given to turn off the camera in order to protect privacy, when should the videos be downloaded, how and when will the video be uploaded to the computer servers, how long should the videos be kept, what additional public records exceptions, if any, should we recommend to our state legislature? And there are many, many other issues that this committee has been studying and evaluating. Please accept my apology. It was not for me to speak tonight. It wasn't for the chief to speak. This is your forum tonight. We are very much interested in what you have to say about body cameras in general or about a specific topic dealing with body cameras. So please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Kathy will bring the microphone to you so that we are able to get everyone an opportunity tonight. Please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Feel free to state your name and any organization you may be representing. And with that, who would like to go first?
I have our first one back here. Stand up. Your name, young man?
My name is James Bell.
And do you have a comment or question?
I have a question. How long will you keep the evidence that's on the body cameras, and when will it be released to the public?
Great question. So let me take a step back. What we're really here is we're interested in what your thoughts are. Having said that, let me address that. Body camera footage is a public record. There are certain existing exceptions to public records currently in the law. I believe under 122 of the revised code. So it depends if it would fall into one of those exceptions. In terms of how long one keeps the body footage, and the committee has yet to finalize its recommendations. What we've been talking about is this. If it deals with a law enforcement matter, then you would keep that, well, let's say a non-law enforcement matter, nothing ever, for example, no charges were ever filed. Then after 90 days, that footage would come off of the servers. One of the things that I'm very concerned about is with 1,900 officers, the amount of space, server space, that this video is going to take up. And when it takes up that space, that gets to be a very, very expensive proposition. So if nothing significant occurs in that, probably after 90 days, that video may go away electronically. If a criminal charge is filed or a case is being investigated, at least 2 years. If it's a significant event, let's say a homicide, that video will be kept forever. Thank you for your question, young man.
Thank you. Who else? Oh, I'll take you on the end here. I got you.
I would like to thank the police department for coming. My name is Alfonso Hooper, and I want to thank everyone for coming. And I wanted to know, with the videos, first I would like to ask the chief, can we have 5 Officer Dave Wilson for Brittany Hills? So he's been working very well with our community, and if we had 5 of him, we wouldn't need body cameras. But anyway, based on the body cameras, I would like to know, is there going to be any community leaders involved in this decision-making concerning body cameras once we get established with them? Is they going to have any input? I don't want it to be like a Baltimore where it's only the police department that governs these decisions based. I don't see Columbus having a Baltimore because we communicate very well with our police officers. But is it going to be any civic, any community leaders like myself? I've lived in Brittany Hills for 47 years. We work very good with our city councilmen and our police officers. Is any of us going to have the opportunity to sit on these panels concerning decisions based on our cameras?
So we have many, many of our community leaders here tonight. The community leaders here tonight are putting together that very policy that you're referring to. And that's why we're asking you, the public, tonight, give us some advice. What do you want in body cameras? So yes, it has been very community driven, this policy. Thank you for your question.
I'll jump up here on the end.
Reverend King, always good to see you, sir.
I've got you.
Okay.
Right ahead, I've got you.
Reverend Joel King, Baptist Ministry Alliance and Pastors Conference. And thank you, Director Speaks, and to the fine panel. Thank you all for serving, because that's an improvement right there tonight. And Chief, my concern with the cameras is that it was when we put the cameras in the cars, and I'm quite sure those on the committee have discussed this, and that is, one, what is a disciplinary policy when the officer forgets to turn the camera on, or has some malfunctions or whatever it is? It's going to be a pre-trip of the equipment before he goes out, a post-trip when he comes back in, so there won't be no excuse when he gets out there in front of some citizen and say, oh, I forgot to turn the camera on. Then we have another issue. The second, there's an organization we talked about 4 years ago, Director Speaks, on NACOLE, National Association of Citizen Review Boards across the country. If none of the people have seen that on the committee, I recommend that site for all the committee members to see those sites for different parts of the country of citizen review boards that we don't have in Columbus, with citizens' input about how they make a kind. I just got a note from Spokane, Washington. Their concern was today was that now the officers are asking to see the footage of the camera before it released to the public. And they were concerned about that. ACLU was concerned about that releasing to the officer, or let the officers allowed to see the footage, because of the fact those who have the tendency to change their stories see the footage, and now when they see the footage, they can adjust their story to what looks in their favor. And so those are concerns I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you very much. I'll hop up front here. I'm going to try to get around to everyone. Yes, sir. State your name.
Good evening. Oh, okay, I'll let you hold.
In case you want to talk with your
Keep my
hands,
hands
you know? No, you can talk with your hands that way better.
My name is Christopher Cooper. I'm a licensed practicing defense attorney here in Columbus, Ohio, this community for 33 years. And I know some of the gentlemen sitting on this board, and I've noticed you have no one from the defense bar on your panel. And I wonder who protects the community, who advocates for the citizens' rights, for the community's rights, to ensure that the body cameras are used properly and the information is transparent. Because as Reverend King has just expressed and Mr. Hooper, these are vital concerns. And when you look at this in the context of secret grand jury meetings, presentations by the Franklin County prosecutor to the grand jury, when you consider the fact that as a victim, as a family member, you cannot get information from the police department on shootings until after they have finished their process. So how do we know, how will we be sure that this will be an objective process, it will be an open and transparent process, and especially in light that we have nobody to represent or advocate for the community's interests from a legal perspective?
Thank you. I can tell you that we have a number of community folks who are involved, who are attorneys in a legal perspective, who are not prosecutors. Gail, for example, is an attorney. Professor Margot Kaminsky, Harvard Law, her bailiwick is privacy and the law. She has made some very good arguments for our committee. The purpose of this committee is to be transparent. Once we finalize our work, we hope that's going to be done in the next 6 to 8 weeks, our policy will be published, so everyone will be able to see exactly what that policy entails. Let me do say this, though, that transparency is also a double-edged sword. One of the great advantages and goals of a body camera is to be transparent, but it's also double-edged in that many times police are there and body camera footage will capture the worst day of someone's life. And depending on the underlying circumstance, folks can make a public record for that information. So our committee is trying to balance transparency with privacy. So you'll be seeing the fruits of our work, and I hope, hopefully, I hope that you will love what we've done. I think we're going to come up with the best body camera policy in the nation.
to stand behind you here. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Margaret Wesley, and my concern is, well, first of all, I am in favor of the body cam, okay? Secondly, what I'm concerned about is would the officers be able to turn it on and off at will? Say during a confrontation, would they be able to turn it off and turn it back on? And if that's the case, would you be able to know that?
So well, let me ask you this. This is for your opinion, but what's your thought? Should the camera be on 24/7 without ever coming off, or should officers be given some discretion? What do you think?
No, I'm not saying 24/7 because there's a lot of technology out here that will allow things to come on if you do a certain thing and then go off, okay? My question is, as we know, so many things have happened where we would have loved to have seen all of it. And yet we were not able to. And this is, and I'm talking about maybe the camera on the car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking if there was some kind of altercation between an officer and a citizen, and if they could turn it on, leave it on until they leave that particular person, get back in their car or whatever the case may be, it's over, then the camera is off. No, I don't say 24 hours. I don't think anyone would be in favor of that. However, I do feel that if the camera is on during an altercation until it's over and not be able to just turn it off and on at will, that's my concern.
That's a great concern, and that's something we've been looking at very, very hard. Let me talk for a minute about our in-camera car videos. Car videos and body cameras, even though they're both, right, this technology, there are some significant differences. For example, our in-car videos are triggered with what's called some automatic triggers. If the sirens go on, if you go over a certain rate of speed, if you come to a quick halt, the cameras automatically turn on. Body camera technology will soon evolve into that. Given the vendors that spoke to us, it's not there yet. So officers are going to have to make or follow our policy to turn when to turn the camera on, so that we're able to be transparent to the public in the work that we do. On the other hand, we're looking at trying to balance that by protecting privacy. So it comes back to that issue of transparency can be a double-edged sword. So we're working very hard to balance those two values.
Okay, we have a question up here or comment?
So if I understand Director Speaks, first let me express my condolences to all the members of the Division of Police for your recent loss. Very tragic. And you are looking for comments as opposed to questions. So,
yes, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are I'm in favor of any technique that is going to protect both citizens as well as members of the Division of Police. And so I think the cameras is that sort of solution. What my concern would be in relationship to the cameras is that it's one solution, but I think community relationships should continue to grow, and there should be more effort in relations between the community and a Division of Police as we are building solutions and techniques, and not look at the cameras to be the solution to improving relations overall, because I think that's at the heart of some of this as to why people want evidence of what happened, and because there's a lack of trust and rapport there. So I am hoping that there's some innovation in community relations as much as we drive the solution of cameras, that there's a careful balance of both so that that trust and rapport can grow along with the techniques that we're equipping the Division of Police with. My other question is how much data in other comparative cities based on incidents with gun or knife have used cameras or not, and will some of that experience in other cities be used when developing the recommendation for the cameras?
Yeah. So first, great comment on your first. And as I said before in my prior remarks, body cameras is a tool, a significant tool. It is not, and studies have shown, it is not a panacea for all. You're absolutely correct. Secondly, with respect to other policies from around the U.S., we have gone through great lengths to, again, review the 4 major model policies. In addition to that, over 20 other jurisdictions throughout the United States, including all of the major police departments with body cameras. And to be quite frank, even though I'm a lawyer, we have plagiarized the very best parts. And I think we are putting together from those best parts what I hope to be the best policy in the nation.
I'm going to
Don't
wrap
sue me
up.
for plagiarizing.
Wrap up on this side. If you have a question back here, and then I'll go hit the other side. Excuse me. Go ahead and stand up and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Ball. One of the things that I heard you say was talking about archiving, moving the data off 45 days. I mean, I think
90 was the
90
thought.
days. I mean, even then, I think that might be a little bit too soon to take it off your server. Even if you do, you have to have it somewhere because a criminal case may not come up for a year later.
Well, let me go back. So one of the things that happens is that the officer, so let me go back. So there's a body camera, and on that body camera, that camera has to be docked or linked into the server each and every night. As part of that linking, and this is all the body camera vendors, you have to go back through that video and you have to earmark, or what's called tag, those incidents. So any criminal action will be tagged and you will know what that criminal action is that day. And likewise, we were working on policies in which it will be noted on both police paperwork and our various computer systems that a body camera was involved in the incident.
And then someone could review it if they wanted.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear you.
I said someone could then review that information.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And a police officer, under all the body cameras we looked at thus far, will not have access in order to modify or alter. An officer will not have the access to do that. And that's every single body camera that we've read about and studied thus far.
Did that answer your question, sir? Okay. Anyone else on this side? We have one, couple more, and then I'll get over to here. Sorry, I'm going to jump in front of you. Go ahead.
My name's Andrew. I'm a student at OSU, and just one thing that I'm in favor of body cameras. One thing that I've heard of, like an argument against it, a lot of people say for like rape or for domestic violence type of things, and that's invasion of privacy. Just my own opinion on it, I feel like that shouldn't be a reason for an officer to turn off their camera. I feel like that should be after the fact. If it should not be released to the public, that can be determined later, but I don't think that that should be a reason to turn off a camera. I'm more with keep the camera on the whole time during the incident.
Thank you for your comments.
Opinion.
We'll slide past you here.
My name is Luther Hayes. I'm with East Hampton Block Watch. And I just want to mention that I did have a pleasant experience with Officer Smith. During National Night Out, he had a SWAT vehicle and a whole team. And he did very well with the youth. I want to thank the police department for that, because our paths crossed and we had a pleasant experience. But I wanted to ask you, you said on a homicide on that server would be on there forever, but you never did mention about a felony. How would you handle that? How long would that be on that server?
We have yet to address that. What is our current policy, Chief or Jeff, with respect to felonies and paperwork? 2 years on the? So generally 2 years. So for example, let's take a felony theft. Our current policy is 2 years to retain all paperwork. We have yet to finalize this, but my thought is we would probably keep that 2 year. And again, one issue here, and it becomes very, very expensive, and you can just imagine your own cell phone, if you will, and the amount of space it's taken up with cell phone calls and videos and pictures. We have hundreds and hundreds of officers taking up hours and hours of footage. It's going to be a very expensive proposition with respect to storage. So we are looking very closely at what should our records retention policy be.
My name is Amgad, and just from the question you asked the panel, so I get the feeling that the pictures or the video would be treated just as a document. Is that the fundamental surface or baseline from a retention perspective and from a privacy and control perspective and redocking and protection, those kind of things? That's one question. I guess the other piece is the release of the video or the pictures to the public. How is that going to be treated as well before it's going to any litigation or it's going to any next steps, I guess, if there's any? Thank you.
So remember, the issue of public records is not new. This is simply a new technology coming into a well-established law. Body camera footage will be a public record and therefore falls under the purview of Ohio's Sunshine Law. So it'd be the same rules, and that law set by the state legislature, it would be the same rules with respect to public records, is that if a records request is made, then the government entity must respond in a, quote, reasonable amount of time, so it depends on what the circumstances are, unless there's an exemption. And so the question would be, would it fall under some exemption? And at what point does that exemption end? That's the question. We have a public records unit that specializes in this. So really the camera footage is no different under the law as the old-fashioned paper records. Each is a record.
Anyone else on this side, or you can, I will be back. All right, over here. Put your hand up, please.
Jared Skinner, just had a question for you. If an officer does not turn on the camera within whatever policy you create, what kind of penalties, if any, are going to be within your policy?
So there are, give me an idea how many policies we have. I couldn't give you a definitive, this will be another policy. Failure to adhere to any policy is subject to discipline under a collective bargaining agreement. So it goes to what's the magnitude of the error of the officer. What is the magnitude? And from there, your discipline must be in proportion to the wrongful act, if you will. So it's really it's the same analysis that we have with any failure to adhere to a division policy. So up into, including termination.
Other questions or comments on this side? Go ahead and state your name. And
I'm Sam Baker. I attend Dublin Scioto High School. I was wondering if the school resource officers would be required to wear and record at school at all times or whenever they do it.
So right now, and what's your thought? Should they or shouldn't they?
I think they should.
They should?
Yeah.
I like that. Haven't made that determination yet. I can tell you that when you get into the issue of juveniles and schools, there are both state law and federal law implications as to what one can record. So that's one issue that we're currently grappling with. Should those SROs record? And the secondary issue of, again, how long are you going to record? The entire day they're in school or only certain incidents? For example, if some sort of fight breaks out or an argument or things become hostile, should they start recording then? That's some of the issues that the committee is looking at currently. So let me ask you this question. Again, 24/7 recording, or only, do you believe, they should record when there's a, we'll call it a law enforcement incident? What's your thought?
hold please. Go ahead.
I think only when there's like a law enforcement incident, because it'd probably take up a lot of data if you record it at 24/7.
Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts.
Other questions or comments on this side? Yes, sir.
My name is Bengali Kaba, and I come from St. Francis de Sales High School. And my question is basically, we've heard a lot about the body cameras, but haven't really heard like how exactly they would be paid for. And so my question is like, how will those cameras be paid for?
So both Mayor Ginther has made this a major tenet of his administration, and working with Safety Director Mitchell Brown and President Klein, they have old habits. For those who don't know, Mitch Brown is a very good friend. I was his number 2 for years and years and years, and a wonderful mentor to this day. So old habits are hard to break. So thank you, Director Council Member Brown. Council, there you go. They will find the money. $2.5 million, again, has been allocated already in our capital budget that we announced today. That is for that infrastructure I was talking about earlier, specifically in order to place fiber into 9 of our police substations so that the videos can be uploaded. And number 2, in order to be able to purchase servers in which to store the video. And with respect to the rest, and there will be millions of additional dollars, we're still trying to figure out and quantify exactly what that number is. We're not there yet. But I just heard that. That one's over my head. I'm a director, not a...
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? All right. Anybody on the right/left side, depending which way you're looking over here? Okay. Oh, one more question.
So, if there's any numbers you can help us understand what are some of the consequences in similar metropolitan areas that they had body cameras? What are some of the challenges or that concern the community after using it, and how long has it been? A year, 2, 3? Just some numbers.
Sure.
Thank you.
So let me answer that in 2 ways. First, there's a number of studies. Again, this technology started in Europe. So the first studies were from England and Scotland. We now have some studies from the US. There's Rialto, California study. There's some studies going on now, I believe, in Mesa and in Phoenix. I can tell you that one ubiquitous thing across all studies is that body cameras changes behavior for the good. If folks know they're being recorded, both audio and visual, they're going to act better. Number 2, there's greater transparency. So body cameras are a good thing. In terms of challenges, those are many of the things that I listed earlier when I first spoke about personnel, infrastructure, a policy addressing the privacy concerns, which is a huge matter, which we're going to have to be speaking to the state legislature and hopefully getting some state money to offset the cost. So there's a lot of great positive things with body cameras in terms of changing behavior, and then we're going to have to overcome some obstacles. Why the mayor convened such a wonderful panel to tackle these issues. Mr. King.
You say that it's some things you have to go through the legislature to get done. If we're serious in this city about having a better police department than we got now, it's always the best, make it better. What do we need to do as citizens to help you and help our legislators to see that we are serious about putting cameras on our officers? We're serious about making the best police department in the country with the right things on both sides of the aisle. So if some legislators need to go and find another job, we need to know those names, and some that need some help to push them that way, who they are, so we can rally the community by hiring you all as well as the community side to make the change in the legislature that we need. And sometimes we can do it locally, and they get stuck up there like they are in Washington, so that's another story. But
Thank you, Reverend King. Thank you. The committee, I said, I hope to wrap up its work within 6 to 8 weeks. We'll be making those recommendations to the mayor. And then Mayor Ginther, I think, will be approaching the legislator about some change dealing with privacy and hopefully offsetting some of the cost. I hope the legislator would entertain that. So hopefully he can rally some support in the community to contact those legislators. Great suggestion.
My name's Debbie Crawford, and I had prepared remarks because I thought this was going to be like city council, but it's not. So I'm throwing these out the window.
Better or worse since he's here?
There will be a council meeting on this.
Oh, there will be? Great. But I just decided I'm just going to speak from the heart.
Please.
I'm really glad to hear you say, and I'll repeat what that nice lady said over there, that as you have said, body cameras are just a small piece of the pie. And I was very impressed with the list that you gave out tonight and Chief Jacobs' information. In the last 3 years, I've been trying to learn as much as I can about police relations, community relations, what's going on. And I know how well-intentioned everyone is, but the people that I've spoken to of color, I think we do not know the extent of implicit bias in so much of what goes on in our community, including policing. And so I really urge you to continue your quest for a comprehensive model that includes the best practices. Because the people that I have spoken to of color in our community who are not criminals, many of them feel they have a very different police force than I live in Clintonville. I rely on the police, obviously rely on the police more and more in Clintonville. But something is happening as a disconnect, because the information you need to make your forces the best in the country, and that was part of my prepared remarks. What would it look like if the City of Columbus divisions of police and fire were the most respected and admired in the United States for their practices around community trust and community relations? And I don't know, I'm not an expert in that area, I don't know what those indicators are, but there's somehow a gap between what your indicators are telling you and what people have told me in the last 3 years. And I don't believe these people were lying or I think we need to figure out a way to disconnect that gap, because there's a lot going on in the community, and I really appreciate all your efforts very, very much. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And I think that body cameras are another tool to help close any gap. With respect to implicit bias, all of our officers are required or have gone through that training. The Kerwin Institute, the wonderful Kerwin Institute at Ohio State, is the entity that has undergone, who did the training. And we will keep that bias training each and every year.
Comment or question back here?
I have a suggestion. Thank you so much, Director, for hosting this community conversation. I would like to suggest that you do this throughout the community to engage more of our community. So thank you so much.
I can tell you that Chief Jacobs will be announcing at some point in the near future our community listening dates. If you recall, last year we went to five places. We'll be going around our great city once again. Those dates and times will be announced soon.
I see 2 more hands. Yes, sir?
I'm Tobias South, former journalist for the Calling Post and Columbus Post. I have several members of my family are on the police department. So I'm excited about you taking the initiative on this and commend the department for that. I was excited also to hear the chief's comments in regard to the importance and significance of that community sense and the trustworthiness between law enforcement and the community. And I think along with that comes the training in diversity as well as recruiting in the African American and minority communities as well. So I'd like to see more of that take place as well.
Thank you, thank you. And by the way, on your way out, for anyone, we have our recruitment table just outside here in the hall. If you are interested, or if you know of anyone who's interested in being a part of the best division of police in the country, please take that information and share it. We'd love to have them apply.
Comment over here, sir.
Yes, my name is Jeff Spears. Mine is more of a fiscal question or a fiscal issue that I have. I believe that using a secure cloud-based technology to store the data would be more cost-effective than the department having its own servers, and such as evidence.com, which is a product of the Axon company, Taser Axon.
Who do you work for? I'm curious. No, go on.
No. But in reading this, it just appears it would be more economically feasible because you're always having to upgrade your servers, you're always having to do those things. Has there been any discussion about using a cloud-based technology that can be purchased instead of the city taking on the infrastructure, the MIS infrastructure, to support this?
So there's 3 ways to go. One is a total turnkey situation in which the private vendor would supply all of the technology and do all the storage. The other extreme is the city does everything, and then you sort of have a hybrid that some jurisdictions have gone, in which the day-to-day video is stored on your third-party vendor, but then those videos that are stored long-term come back to the municipality. So there's basically three options you have with respect to storage. We are looking at all three. We are currently drafting the RFP or the bid document. It will be an open-ended bid document is what we're looking at now to allow the vendors to come in and make their pitch. So we'll be evaluating that very closely through the procurement process. Folks, we have a wonderful community. People willing to spend a Wednesday night coming out and doing their civic duty and giving us your great thoughts and your input. On behalf of the Body Camera Committee, on behalf of Mayor Ginther, City Council, the City of Columbus, I greatly thank you for your time. If you would have any other questions, we'll be around with Chief and I, especially in terms of, I'm always getting questions regarding our community outreach, the pamphlet that has a description of the various programs. It has a contact number, either email or telephone. If you want any more information, please grab one of the officers or myself or the chief, and would be glad to go into much greater detail if you're interested in a particular program. Be safe. Thank you so much.
If you did not get a handout and would like one, they're back on the back corner table in a box. Please help yourself.